Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, and what I want to talk to you today about is the idea of relationship anxiety or anxious attachment style. Now, you might find that every time you get into a relationship, you might be super confident when you're single, but the moment you get into a relationship, you become intensely insecure. You might find yourself constantly being jealous. You might be checking when your partner was last online, or checking who they're following on Instagram, or just checking where they are. You might find yourself constantly comparing yourself to their exes. You might find yourself, trying to predict where they're going to be, when they're going to call you next, so on and so forth. You might find yourself completely and utterly preoccupied with your partner, and you almost can't think outside of the realm of your relationship. The relationship now has a hold over you, where you're not even making plans with your friends. You're just trying to stay available in case this person calls you. You are, putting your life on hold just to revolve around your partner. And you kind of are just almost a bit obsessed with your partner. And this obsession, though it sounds like it's coming from a place of love, the moment you have a fight, you erupt and you become super negative, and you become super judgmental. You become really harsh with your partner as soon as you fight. And you don't understand where this is coming from. You seem to be fine a couple of weeks ago. You seem to be okay. But after a month, 2 months, you're now this person who's a bit of a wreck. And you can't stop thinking about your partner, and you can't stop watching them. And you're so hyper vigilant to any changes in their mood or behavior. Or if you're separated for a long period of time, you get like a lump in your throat. And even when you hear them say things like, oh, I'm just going to go on holiday in a couple of weeks, or I'm just going to go to a new workplace, instead of being excited for them and happy for them, you interpret it as, you're going to leave me, you're going to cheat on me, you're going to do something. And even if they just say, I'm going to go out with my friends, your brain will start to think, who's going to be there? What are they going to be talking to? Who's going to be? And you might start following that restaurant online and checking, the Instagram story of that restaurant. You just find yourself doing behaviors that you don't recognize in yourself. Now, if this is happening to you, then you have relationship anxiety, or what we know in psychology as the anxious attachment style. So what is this? Now, what attachment style refers to is, this was first studied by psychologists, and what psychologists noticed is how parents respond to infants in their first few years of life, and how responsive they are to the child, and how attuned they are to their emotional needs, has a very predictable effect on their adult relationships. So if you have very loving, caring, considerate, kind parents, what will happen is, as a baby, you learn that whenever you're upset, somebody will come and soothe you. So you go into adult relationships with an element of trust. You assume if you're upset, somebody will save you. Somebody will be there for you. And you can trust people. They come, they help you, they look after you, they treat you well. So you go into adult relationships with a sense of security. You trust people easily, and you find partners that treat you well, because if someone doesn't treat you well, it feels so unfamiliar that you detach. So you tend to have quite healthy outcomes. Now, if you have an anxious attachment style, what that means is, when you're growing up, especially in the early years of infanthood, what would have happened is your parents were inconsistent. Either you had one loving parent and one distant parent, or what may have happened is you had a loving mother, but she'd be inconsistent. Very loving one minute and caring, but then the moment you do something she doesn't like, she would withdraw her love. She might give you the silent treatment, or she might punish you, or she might not. She might favor a sibling over you. Whatever it is, it led you to believe that at some point in time, whoever loves you is going to leave you. They're going to love you and leave you, love you and leave you. So what happens is, in adult relationships, outside of adult relationships, you tend to be quite put together and you're okay. But the moment you start falling in love, your brain starts to work out how and when this person is going to leave you. They're going to leave you at some stage. And then you almost try and predict and control the elements that may lead to them withdrawing from you. So you will enter a relationship and assume at some point they're going to cheat on you, or at some point they're going to hurt you. And what you'll do is, the moment you get together with them, you launch your investigation. You start to look for evidence that this person is not right for you. But in the process of looking for that evidence, you start to get preoccupied with them, and you form a bit of an obsession. So you're getting more attached. So you're digging for gold, you're digging for that, that evidence that this person's wrong for you. But in that process of digging, you become so invested in that person that you're now super attached to this person. And only they can soothe you. So you might get really, really anxious, and you might be stressed, and you might be like thinking, when am I going to hear from them? And only when you get a text from them, only when you get a phone call from them, does your anxiety drop and you can finally breathe again. But when there's separation, the anxiety increases, only drops when you hear from them. So you live in this constant state of heightened anxiety with your partner, and you only feel calm when you're connected. You don't feel calm outside of that. And when you're not connected and there's been separation for however long, your brain will start to go to the worst case scenario. If, for example, you haven't heard from them all day, or if they've been busy or whatever it is, your brain won't simply assume that they're just busy. Your brain will start to think they're doing this, they're doing that, and then you start your investigation. You start looking for things, you start asking about them, you start checking when they're online. You can't stop. And this happens, and as a result, in your desperate attempt to kind of keep this person or control this person, you almost self-sabotage, because by the time you do hear from them, you've got all this built-up anger and resentment and accusations, and this person is maybe just busy and just heard from you after a long day and might be looking forward to seeing you, but because you've got all this anger and resentment, they can't navigate you. They don't know where this is coming from. You almost punch them in the gut with all of these accusations, or all this anger, or all this resentment, and all this stress that they didn't know that they caused. So you end up always fighting. And in that process of trying to love them and trying to stay connected to them, you actually end up pushing them away. And this seems to be the common theme with anxious attachment styles. So if that sounds like you and sounds like your behavior, then chances are you have this anxiety, and chances are you're always going to find yourself in these eruptive relationships. Now, I'm going to give you a few tips on what you can do to resolve this anxiety that you have regarding relationships. The first one for anxious attachment style, the very first thing that you need to do is stop the protest behavior. Now, what protest behavior means is when you have relationship anxiety, you seem to feel very uncomfortable expressing your true needs and expressing what you want. So what you do is you play games. You try and do the exact opposite of what you truly want in order to get your needs met. And so what I mean by this is, what protest behavior basically means is, if I want to spend more time with my partner and I haven't seen them in a while, what I will do is post on Instagram that I'm really busy and I'm with my friends, so they think that I'm busy. You're doing the opposite of what you want. What you truly want is to spend time with them. But what you're going to do now is pretend that you're busy. So you're not going to get what you truly want. Another thing that protest behavior might look like is, I want my partner to be really loyal and loving, and I want them to label it with us because I don't like being in a situation without labels. Instead of saying that, you might pretend you're going on dates with other guys. You might start following other girls on Instagram. You might show that you're so single. You might pretend that you're super, super independent just to kind of get a reaction, just to make them jealous. So instead of communicating your true needs, you do the exact opposite, hoping they'll be able to read between the lines and give you a reaction, and then you can feel safe again. But in the process of this protest behavior, you get exactly what you didn't want out of that relationship. You get the exact wrong response, and then you end up almost hurting yourself with this protest behavior. So you want to stop the protest behavior. Stop doing the opposite of what you truly want. Stop posting and pretending you're out when you're truly home, hoping that they come home on time. Stop pretending that you love being single and you love your independence when really you want a committed relationship. Stop pretending and replace this protest behavior with effective communication. What I mean by this is, every time you get a trigger, which anxious attachments get triggered all the time, instead of getting angry and saying, oh God, I don't even know why I'm with you, I don't even want this relationship, replace it with, I'm feeling unsure, I'm feeling insecure. I prefer a relationship where we know where we stand and we have labels. And I don't really like the idea that, you're seeing other people and I'm seeing other people. It's not what I'm comfortable with. So let me know what you think. You replace what you are pretending to be with what your true needs are. Now, anxious people tend to be terrified of doing this. They think, if I do this, I'm going to put them off, they're going to run away from me, and I'm going to look really needy. So if you express your needs and it puts them off and they run away, You've lost the person who was never compatible with your true needs anyway. You've speeded out the outcome. You want a committed relationship. This person doesn't. By telling them you want a committed relationship, you get the answer to your questions way faster. And you save yourself the rigmarole of all the protest behavior and all the game playing and all the pretending to be cool. And you get what you truly want out of life. And you gain self-esteem because you learn that I actually put my cards on the table. If you accept it, perfect, we've got a deal. If you don't accept it, bye, because it wasn't going to work anyway. If I stay with you knowing that we have different needs and wants, I'm only delaying the divorce. We're going to break up one day anyway. So I might as well save myself the time and energy, might as well save you the time and energy and let go. Anxious people have a real trouble letting go because they're super, super loyal to the people that they're invested in. But the reality is they tend to be invested in the comfort of having someone, and it's not the person themselves. When you start communicating effectively, you will realize whether this person is actually compatible with you or if you're just attaching to the person for the sake of attaching. And that's why it's really important for an anxious attachment style to never show protest behavior, kill that in you, and effectively communicate your needs. The third thing that you need to do as an anxious attachment style is try your absolute best, and this is very difficult for anxious attachment styles, but try your absolute best to maintain your independence. When an anxious attachment style enters a relationship, they tend to drop their own needs and drop what they normally do in their friends and family, everybody, and devote their life to their relationship and make the relationship their main source of self-esteem. Problem with that is their partner tends not to match that energy. Their partner tends to just get on with their life and not really revolve around the relationship. And they interpret their partner's independence as a lack of love. And they get angry at that person for being somewhat independent or autonomous. But really, if they maintain their connections with other people, they maintain their life goals, they maintain their priorities, and the relationship, they try their best to still do what they normally would do, rather than just saying, I'm going to cancel all plans in case they're free. What will happen is they'll have less built up resentment for their partner. They'll be less dependent on that phone call from their partner to say, are you free? Are you busy? They will be making their own plans and getting on with their day. So as much as it's unnatural for you, try your best to maintain your independence and autonomy as much as you can. Okay? So the three main things I would say is, firstly, watch the protest behavior, make sure you effectively communicate, and try and maintain your autonomy at all times. If you can master those three things, what will happen is you'll naturally end up selecting a secure partner. You'll end up selecting somebody who's good for you, who soothes you, who matches you. But if you pretend to be cool, if you pretend that you don't want a relationship, if you do the opposite of what you truly want, you're going to also match with somebody who plays games, who's also independent, who also doesn't want labels. You're going to match the very person who is your worst nightmare. So by doing those three things, staying somewhat independent, communicating your needs, and avoiding protest behavior, you will conduct yourself in a more secure manner and you'll attract a more secure partner. Stay tuned, where I will be explaining the other types of insecure attachments and how you can develop a more secure attachment style. Thank you so much for tuning in.